Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Tuesday, September 17th. Jamie, boy, what a more pleasurable experience it was breaking down this film versus last week. It was not a great time against NIU, but it was a lot better this time around. Just looking at better play all around from the offense and the defense. Especially from the defense, Jamie. We got to go into Notre Dame's second and third teams. I mean, oh my goodness, what a wonderful performance by them. There's a lot of good stuff going on in Notre Dame's back end and their youth and things of that nature. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Notre Dame's passing game. We're going to talk about man beaters versus zone beaters. We brought that up. We got a question on the ISD board about that, so we're going to talk about that today. We've got some diagrams, Jamie, some arrows and some green circles and things of that nature. And they're going to show you how it all works. I've got some thoughts on Notre Dame's wide receivers and maybe some players who are rising, separating themselves from the others. See to get your thoughts on that. So that's going to be our show today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe on this channel. And please hit the notification bell so whatever it is we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. Notre Dame looked a lot better on Saturday. And if you want to look better, then you're going to want to head over to ESQ Clothing. They have finally restocked all of their bamboo dress shirts online. You've seen ESQ's bamboo dress shirts on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches, and it's made from proprietary fabric that's cooler and softer than cotton. It's the best shirt for any occasion. Go to esqclothing.com. Use ISD15 to get 15% off your order. That's ISD15 to get 15% off. The Shark 83 says Greg and Jamie taking as long as Leonard to read a defense. I don't know what that means. It sounds like slander. It sounds like a shot. But he says he's joking. So that's funny. Haha. Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago, says if you had Purdue in 58, you lost from Warner Wolf. Didn't see that coming. I don't think anyone saw a 59-point victory coming, but I think we saw. Look, if there's a certain kind of way you're going to play Notre Dame defensively, if you're going to play a bunch of man against them, and you're going to let Notre Dame get into the secondary, then you might be in for a very long day. And the first thing I want to talk about, Jamie, is obviously quarterback, because that's always on everyone's mind. And watching the game back and thinking about the way that the game was called, I think, and the unhappiness that fans have about the inability to throw downfield or the whatever it may be. I think that fans and maybe you and I can feel how we want to feel about these things, but Riley Leonard did exactly what the game plan called for. I think from a coach's point of view,
for the most part, yeah.
he played a great football game. And so the game plan was to throw like all those short routes that they threw to the tight ends and those little short out routes into Jaden Thomas and things of that nature to Bo Collins. Those were all game planned. He was not meant to read anything else other than that. They set up multiple plays to get those guys open, and they did, and they hit them, and they were able to move the ball. The quarterback run game was there. So I think from a coaching point of view, Riley Leonard played an A-plus football game. Wondering how you feel about that kind of statement.
Yeah, no, he did. Like, I mean, there's definitely plays that I think you can point out. And I know that those are the plays that all of frustrated Notre Dame fans focused on, right? Like, there's plays where he's scrambling, his eyes aren't downfield. He's looking to run, right? He's looking to run when there are guys open. When he gets out of the pocket, they're open, because that's how Purdue's playing him, to play the run. And so, yeah, you'd like to see him make some of those throws. I'd like to see him, improvise and create stuff, outside of the pocket with his arm. I would love to see that. But I think this game was largely about getting his confidence back, because, I mean, It was bad against NIU. He knew it. Everybody knew it. And it was mostly about like, hey, they got to win the game. They have to
Yeah.
do whatever it takes to win the game. And it's not about like, hey, we got to work on our downfield passing game. Because if they did, then maybe they come out in early on and he's off and it's already like he's already on tilt and things are bad, and it just
Mhm.
bad from there, right? And then all of a sudden they're scrambling there, and yeah, the defense dominated, so maybe it wouldn't have mattered, but I mean, it shouldn't have been a close game. So why would you try to make it a close game? So
Yeah.
I think everyone had talked about the week before is like, wow, they need to run the ball. Leonard needs to run the ball. This is the things they do. And they did it. They did absolutely that. And I thought Mike Denbrock called a great game. Right away. I mean, the opening script was awesome. I thought that, you know, they took advantage of their athletes and use them. Get Leonard, his QBR versus NIU was like 25, and it was 93.8
Yeah.
versus, I don't know. It's out of 100, guys. So it's like,
Yeah.
like, um, because that their ESPN's QBR takes in the running aspect, and I mean he was dynamic as a runner, and that was huge. Yes, I think people can honestly look at it going forward and say like, hey, are we going to be able to do this every week against these teams and whatever? Like, yeah, that's totally fair to look at from Notre Dame from that perspective and say like whether or not they can do that against certain teams, but they might be able to do this. I mean, not to this extent, but they might be able to have a really, really effective running game with that kind of like three-headed monster there every week against the schedule they play against. That it is a possibility. They have to expand the passing game for sure, but I just, you know, I just think of people coming out of this game complaining about like being up 42 nothing at halftime and him being the first quarterback to throw for 100 and run for 100.5 since
Yeah.
since Lamar Jackson. Like I seems pretty good. Seems pretty good to
Yeah.
me.
Isaac K, I think this is a good point, and I think it's correct. If Knapp doesn't run into Leonard and he hits the touchdown to Collins, does that change people's idea of his game? I think it would have made people a lot more excited. Honestly, I do. If they would have hit the play, but they didn't. And so it is what it is, and everyone can continue to say he still hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. It's funny. I was listening to Power Hour, and you brought up the same play that I was thinking about. Like to me, I don't really care. Like he missed Jeremiah Love on the scramble. That honestly doesn't bother me that much.
And Jelly missed a similar play.
Right. So it doesn't I don't really care about that because even in context, like I think there was a moment where he could have made the throw if he had been looking, but I don't think he was looking yet. I think
No.
he was getting out of there. And by the time he looked up, Jeremiah Love's kind of standing there. And I said this on the morning after show, like he's standing there with his hands up. It's kind of like I was wondering how was he meant to throw that? Like can he just chuck it up there because there's someone coming? Like it there's a way that it gets thrown, like where he throws it too far. It was probably awkward, and it's like 3rd and 5. Like just run for the first down, right? Like it's easier to just run for it and the drive continues. But the throw that bothered me the most, and I think you mentioned it on Power Hour too, was the in route to Jaden
Yeah.
Thomas. That's the one he's got to be
You
hitting.
got to make that.
He missed the throw at the same throw to Chris Mitchell against NIU. He threw it low. He threw it low both times, and to me that is indicative of his confidence level. And I think we had a lot of conversations last week about people were talking about Marcus Freeman's effect on the offense at large. And I think how the conversation is meant is this isn't what they mean. They mean he's like stifling Denbrock in some kind of way, and I don't think that's it.
Which is
But I
just
do,
stupid. Yeah,
yeah. I
that's bad
think
argument.
there is something to how Marcus talks about protecting the ball and being safe with the ball. I think the fact that these throws continue to be low, he doesn't want anything high where it's like this ball is going to get tipped up in the air and it's going to get intercepted. Like I do think he does have a little bit of just not fully committed to whipping it in there, because we saw this against Duke. Like he can make this throw. And it's not like his arm is definitely strong enough to do it, right? He's got to bang it in there, and he isn't. And that's the one where, look, man, you got to, whether it's in your head or whatever it is, that has to be completed much more so than the rest of it. Because, and funny thing is like, that's kind of where Jack Cohn, like that's where he needed to kind of excel too. Like he had to hit that intermediate throw, and that was the one he started to hit.
When he started to hit, the offense took off.
Yeah. So that's kind of, we kind of both saw that there, Jamie. Do you see
it's
anything?
Like similar to the just sorry to interrupt, but the Great House throw on the first drive, and I know they scored on that drive or whatever.
Yeah,
but it was a clean pocket, an open throw. If you hit him in stride, even if you throw it a little behind him, he still had that much space to create like something big after the catch.
Yeah.
And that one was wide open. Like this one with Thomas was tighter, but it wasn't like he didn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
He didn't have to be that low, right? So I think some of it is like, I think it's a lot of it's confidence. And I don't know, like I think you almost have to like you want to see him make those throws and gain that confidence. But at the same time, like they can't be, that is the stuff you work on in practice to get to that point before you feel good. And when you feel good enough, then you can, rep it a ton in a game after.
And everyone's talking about, like me, right? And you, right? We both spent time talking about, this is what he did at Duke. He was able to make these throws at Duke, right? Well, it was 2 years ago. In the context of it being 2 years ago, this is when no one knew his name. No one knew who Riley Leonard was.
Yeah.
He was a Duke quarterback. No one expected Duke to be any good at that point. No one was paying attention. It didn't matter what he did, right? It didn't matter what it looked like. It didn't matter whether they were whatever they were doing. If Duke was winning, it's like, that's great, right? Any kind of win at Duke is a good win, right? You beat NIU 17-13 at Duke, that's good. You win any game by 1 point at Duke, that's good. At Notre Dame, you win 66-7, and there's
people are picking apart stuff. Yeah.
You're still being talked about in a negative way, and that's the deal. And I don't know whether that's weighing on him or whatever, but that is the fact, right? So look, it's I think some of it is a little overboard, but I think some of it's fair too, right?
Yeah.
And so we just have to kind of react to what we see.
Yeah. I think a lot of the criticism is fair, but if you're ignoring the fact that they won 66-7 and ignoring that, like, oh, look how dynamic he was as a runner in this game, then that's unfair. Then get out of here. Because I don't, you have to take that into account, because that is a huge part of the game and is a huge part why they won. He's also, you could see how Purdue played him as a runner helped Price and Love. So, you gotta, it's all together. It needs to be one piece of it. And, I think the only thing is unfair if you only said that, you can say he did all this, but okay, that's fine. But if you're just like, well, this and this and this, no, that's not fair.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about man beaters versus zone beaters, Jamie. Notre Dame was in this game. Purdue played a ton of man, and you call different kind of route concepts against that sort of thing. We've been using those terms pretty loosely. And someone on the board asked the question about what exactly is that? What does that mean? Right. So we drew up a little something here at Irish Sports Daily. This was an out route to Eli Raridan. So he's at the bottom of the screen in the slot. He runs that little out route, and that's the route that they are trying to get open here, Jamie. So why don't you kind of talk through it, and then we'll show the actual play and how it worked in real time.
Yeah. So when you're doing this with a lot of man beaters, and you hear them talk about it in the telecast.
Mm-hmm.
You hear them talk about it all the time, and rub routes, right?
Yeah.
Where basically the other receiver paired with it. Sometimes it's multiple receivers on one side that are part of a play where, I mean, you're essentially picking a guy,
Mm-hmm.
but it has to look like you're not picking him, like you're just running the route. And if you're doing it properly, which I think I saw a lot of great rub routes by Bo Collins, Jaden Thomas, Jaden Greathouse specifically in this
Mm-hmm.
game, where they did a great job of running their route and not making it obvious that I am basically trying to take out the other man defender and getting a guy open, right? And giving that guy extra space, because if they're doing it right, then so that's obviously like the linebacker that is
Mm-hmm.
on a linebacker, or actually that is Antonio Stevens, the safety, I believe. But
Yeah.
that's a safety on there. Then that safety, he can't close on that right away. So he
Yeah.
can't close on this out route. That gives Raridan space. That gives him a chance to, it's not going to be a contested catch. It's not going to be, it's going to be a chance, hopefully, for yards after the catch,
Mm-hmm.
and all of those kind of things. And it's just like anything, like when people look at it in basketball, because obviously there's a ton of picks in basketball, and you can undercut it and try to that pick or that rub route and try to like close it down too. And the great ones can maybe do that and still make a play on it. But you better be right, because if you're wrong, it could be a house call,
They're
right?
turning and
So
running upfield. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So Jaden Thomas at the bottom, and when we show the play, you'll see like he runs his route. Basically, he's creating a wall where it's like this defender who's covering Raridan, like he has to decide, like you said, am I going over, am I going under, or am I just kind of playing behind, which ends up happening. And look, it's an easy 8 or 9 yards here, right?
yeah,
And that you stay ahead of the chains, and that works out. At the top of the screen, you see Mitchell Evans kind of do the same thing. He takes outside release at this corner who's covering KK Smith. KK Smith takes an inside release, and he cooks this corner because he waits and he plays behind a little bit. KK Smith gets a free release, and he's moving upfield. Now there's the safety at the top of the screen that's going to kind of take away that route based on what they're doing. But Notre Dame wants to throw this out to Raridan. They did it all game, and it was available all game, and that was the game plan. So, like, if you're looking at this and say, oh, man, he could have waited for KK Smith or he could have waited for Mitchell Evans, he's never getting there because his first read is the out, and that is what they want to throw. He's never going to get to that.
yeah,
But on the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen, you have basically switch releases where, and when I say switch release, I mean the outside guy is going to become the inside guy, and the inside guy is become the outside guy. Like they are both essentially rubbing the corners. Now, there's actually no contact made, so there's no penalty. Notre Dame is at no risk of getting a penalty called in this situation. But that's how that gets created. So we'll play the clip real quick, and if I could pull it up, here we go. All right. So there we go. Look how Jaden Thomas moves his guy and causes the defender to get into him. We'll play it again. Look at the top, how the defender has to play behind, basically underneath KK Smith, and that allows him to come free there. But look, this is easy 8 or 9 yards for Eli Raridan, and
yeah.
that is the deal.
And this is why like route combinations are important, and why you need guys to do exactly what is drawn up in the play, right? Like you need to have it exactly how it is, because Thomas isn't running that route for him to get open. Like he is running that specifically to help Raridan. He's not running a vertical route thinking I'm getting the ball here. And maybe there might be some reason why, hey, like something happens and he does get the ball, but that's not his thing. He's not trying to get upfield right away. And you could say, okay, he could just run a clear out and then this guy can just win. But that makes it a lot harder, and that makes that safety's job so much easier if he does that, right? Because that safety can just sit on that, and then if he sees out, he can break on it and maybe make a play, make a tackle right away, something like that. Like that's why you do this. And this is also too, like, man, Jaden Thomas, tremendous job in this game of just like why he needs to play. We mentioned this on after, right, about like why he needs to play more, like as much as he did in this game, is because he does this. He understands. He's a vet, but he's kind of done this basically since he started playing. Like he's always been like a smart player, an unselfish player. And when you do this kind of thing, if the other guy's not doing it, like that's how this doesn't become a completion. That's how this, maybe gets picked. That's how you don't move the ball and then it's 2nd and 10 or whatever. Like, so it's crucial. It's all got to work together.
Yeah. Envy Irish says, is there any way to tell primary read from secondary read just by watching the play? Yeah, I mean, where his eyes go. It's the first place his eyes go is to the right. And this is pre-snap. He knows what they have. He knows they're in man, just based on alignment from everyone and the safety. Now, look, he's presupposing man. Like there were a couple times when Purdue showed man and they dropped in the zone, right? And look, Notre Dame was incomplete on those plays, right? So if you, but like it's first down, right? So here, the other part too is this is an early down play. Purdue is going to be in their defense, right? They're going to have some third down exotics where they switch into zone and stuff. But on first down, you're pretty confident they're going to be in man, right? Because they're expecting run, and so they're going to do what they normally do on that type of situation. Matthew Patterson, this is a good observation by him. The route combos on top are high, low in the single high safety as well. Exactly. So let's say
I want to occupy that guy.
Yeah. So they're basically running KK Smith towards the middle of the field at the safety. He's going to hold him, right? Let's say the bottom of the screen doesn't work out for whatever reason. It Raritan slips. Jaden Thomas is not running a route that is meant to get open. He is getting open the slot receiver. If that doesn't work out, then Riley Leonard's eyes are going to go to the backside, and then he will be looking at Mitchell Evans at that point. Because to Matthew Patterson's point, KK Smith is occupying the free safety. So that's what he's doing there. So that's why you have basically a double in route. If neither of those are open, then Riley Leonard's probably getting out of there, right? And so that's kind of what the play design of that one. Let's show a zone beater here. I apologize for the fact that this is the play that got intercepted. Okay, I apologize for that, but it's the best. It is kind of the best example. Now, obviously, the green on there's a lot going on, but look at when you're playing zone, you need to know where everyone's supposed to go. Now, there's a lot of green in here. This is basically classic cover 3 from the defense. And on top, you have Chris Mitchell. He's running the post. Jaden Greathouse is running an over route, and Bo Collins is running a go. Jadarian Price is sitting in the middle of the field. Mitchell Evans is sitting in the flat. So, basically, this entire play is that you are forcing the defense to make a decision, right? So the single high safety, he either has to run to this post or he can run to the over route by Greathouse. If he runs to the over route, then you have the post available to you, right? On the backside, they are sending Bo Collins down the seam because they want this cover 3 corner out of the way so that if Leonard does throw this over route to Greathouse, that he's not going to get there and intercept it, right? So they want Bo Collins out of the play. They want that corner out of there, right? They want Jadarian Price sitting right where he is in the middle of the field because they don't want those linebackers getting too much depth because then they can interrupt this over route. It's the same thing with Mitchell Evans coming to the flat. They don't want this player to the bottom here. They don't want him getting in the way of the over route. Like all of these routes are there to basically create something for someone else, right? There's it's all in unison. So the trouble for Notre Dame in this instance is this requires Riley Leonard to make a few reads here. He's got to read this out, right? There is no pre-snap, right?
Yeah.
The only pre-snap that you would have is an alert. So whether he's alerting with the safety or he's alerting with the backside corner, whatever it is, that's the player he's going to be keying. And then he has to decide mid-play. So it's not pre-snap like it is against man.
The one thing though he knows is just, sorry to interrupt, Greg, but it's just that with the motion, and he sees the lack of action with the motion, he knows it's zone.
He's getting zone.
He knows he's getting zone, which is why they called this play. Like it's a zone beater, like you said. So sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. So that's what it requires, right? And I think what we saw on this play is the underthrow. He wasn't fully committed to what he was looking at, in my opinion. And that's why it's short. He has the arm to throw it further than this. Like,
yes,
people are, he can't. He obviously can. He can throw it further than this, but he wasn't committed to the pass. He wasn't committed to what his eyes were looking at. And so therefore he threw it short, right? And for whatever reason, I've been bringing up golf a lot on this pod, but I think it's a good example. Whereas like, if you're a golfer and you're not committed to the shot, then guess what? You're not going to hit it flush. You're not. You're going to chunk it. It's going to go short. You're going to think to yourself, man, I just didn't commit to that. Ryan Leonard did not commit to this throw because he wasn't totally confident in what he was seeing. This is the first time they've run this route combination, and it didn't work out in a higher leverage situation. But that's what a zone beater is, right? Against this defense, what we're looking at here and what the play Notre Dame called, you have multiple people open. Okay. He threw it to the wrong person, and he threw it the wrong way. And that's why it didn't work. But the play call itself is going to be a banger. Yeah, it was a good call. I'm not going to show it.
Yeah, we don't need to show
I don't need to show the video of that. We've seen it enough. But those are examples of what that is. And I think a lot of people ask this stuff. So listen, if you're a member of Irish Sports Daily, get on the message board and say, Greg, Jamie, I have a question about X thing. Could you diagram it up for us? Yes, we will. We will absolutely do that because we like to do that stuff. It's a good thing. Jamie, question, not even a question, comment, kind of where I want to go with this. Watching the tape back, I really was impressed with a few players specifically. One, I mean, Bo Collins, I think he's been Notre Dame's best wide receiver, so we're just going to go there. We've talked about Jaden Thomas a bunch. I thought Jaden Harrison, he really showed me something in this game. I thought KK Smith really showed me something in this game.
Yeah.
I like his route running. I like how he gets open. I like his burst. And I'm just being honest. Like if I watched this tape and I knew nothing about Notre Dame's wide receivers, didn't know anything about them from the previous season or hype or whatever, I would say that Collins, Thomas, Harrison, and Smith needed to be out there, kind of on the regular basis, which isn't to say I don't like Jaden Greathouse, right? Which isn't to say I don't like Chris Mitchell. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying those guys, like, they popped and they really showed me something, especially Jaden Harrison. So I think he's got to get some more snaps there, Jamie. Your thoughts?
I think he does have to get some more snaps. I would put Greathouse in that group. I would just say that I do think that Harrison needs to get some snaps in the slot. And then I'm also of the opinion that, maybe Faison is fine in the field. We saw a very limited bit of him at the field, but he was just so good out of the slot last year that I would just love to see him get targets out of there. And because I do think that he adds an element. That is a guy who's like straight up, he can beat somebody in man coverage. Like he can. Yeah. And he's, a slippery guy after the catching and do all these kind of things. So But I think, yeah, if you watch this game, like you saw, um, just without, you know, the numbers being insane or anything like that, you saw a lot of great stuff from the receivers in this game. And I think just up and down for every category, because I think there were things that in the first couple weeks you could rightly say, like, what's going on here in terms of like the level of blocking, the level of like execution with a lot of the stuff when they were kind of running some rub route stuff, when they, you know, where how they were adjusting to certain things in zone and whatever. Like there was definitely things where you're like, this doesn't seem like this wasn't at a high, it wasn't at a high level.
Yeah.
And this game, I thought it was at a high level. And, you know, and people were getting on Mike Brown or whatever, you know, you give him his flowers, because I think he did a really good job with his group, because man, they were ready in this game and they did a really, really nice job. And, you know, I think that you're going to see more of these guys, you know, make plays and create stuff. And especially too, because you look at it, like one of the plays, there was the play where, you know, 3rd and 3, Thomas runs the pivot route. You know, it's out of like a you know, trips bunch, whatever.
Yeah.
He runs the pivot route, and then Great House, awesome job on the rub, takes his guy. That's what let open up. Ends up being an explosive, right? You get 21 yards or whatever it was. And then right after that, you look at Jane Thomas. Who does he points right
Points
to?
to Great House.
Points to Great House, because he knows that was the guy who got him. So all that kind of stuff too is like, that's how it is. And also too, like, that's a good leader, Jane Thomas. Really, like, kind of, because he does that kind of stuff. He's willing to do that stuff for you, right? Like he did that one, you know, you pointed out with the Raritan thing. Second play of the game, Bo Collins, you know, tremendous job. You know, just basically taking out that corner who's coming across on the motion. I actually thought in that first second of 5, Greg, I don't know if you felt the same, but like, I thought Collins didn't need to go out of bounds there. I thought he could have turned it up and maybe try to get a little something there.
So I thought the ball was like
it wasn't a great ball.
It was the ball was fine. I thought it was a half step late. It was just a little bit late, where it's like he basically led him out of bounds, because where he was, like if he had caught it like a half step before, I think he could have turned it up and done something. But I think he just kind of led him. I think he was just a little bit late with the throw. And so I think that was kind of, I did notice that, where I was like, that ball needed to get out maybe a tick sooner. And look, it was the first throw of the game, right? Like, just catch it and get the first down. And let's move on with our day. So that's fine. That's a pretty nitpicky thing, but just
like it wasn't like a thing that I lingered on or whatever. But I was just like, oh man,
yeah,
I really do, because there was a lot of space there. Originally there was a lot of space
there. Yeah. Envy Irish asked the question: would the play be a complete bust if you called a man beater and they were in zone? It can be, yeah. So like a lot of those 3 and outs, like that's exactly what happened with those 3 and outs. Is you think you're getting, and honestly, like the first 3 and out that Purdue had, or Notre Dame had, Purdue forced, they disguised it really well, because they sent motion and they followed. The corner matched like it was man, and then they dropped in his zone. They did a very good job on that one of disguising it. And what happens is now your primary read changes, where it's like, oh, they're in man. I need to get I need to get off this route, because I need to move around. He ended up trying to throw a dump off to Jadarian Price. Jadarian Price didn't run it very well. Like, he's motioning Price, you got to get out away from this lineman, because I have to throw over him. He tried to throw over him. He wants him out towards the flat. So I think it kind of confused Jadarian Price as well. And so the other part is like he scrambles away. Someone made a comment about Purdue's safety. Listen, he obviously had a very rough game. I thought they put him in pretty much the worst position imaginable.
Yes.
He really was out on an island trying to tackle these guys. And it's just like, you have no chance on that particular play. Riley Leonard is going to, And here's a good example of like how a zone beater or a man beater gets called and they are in zone and it messes everything up. The safety's 25 yards away on the snap. I mean, he is playing way deep. Notre Dame did not have anyone running up the middle of the field because that's not what they were expecting to even have to worry about him. But they didn't have anyone to hold him there. And so he's sitting there watching Riley. He comes from way distance. Riley Leonard is going to get this first down, and then he's going to get more yards. He comes from way back, and he basically makes the play from there. I mean, I was like, wow, he's got some juice, this kid. So
he's an incredible athlete.
He's a very good athlete.
He was put in horrible positions. The way I would put it, and I know Greg will appreciate this because I just mentioning this to Matt Freeman, is they played him like he was Kyle Hamilton, but there's not a lot of Kyle Hamiltons out there.
Yeah.
Like, so because that's some of the stuff, like not all of it, because some of it was even worse than that, but like worse situations. But like some of that stuff is like with the single high stuff where he's got to come down and like to the opposite hash and just, from the opposite hash and come across and like make it play there. That's like the Jadarian Price touchdown. Yes, I understand. It's like shake a bake, whatever, his ankle's broken, whatever. And what he needed to do was be like, hey, this angle's impossible. I just need to slow play it and let him pick.
Let him decide and then chase him down.
This is going to be a 30-yard run, but it's not going to be a 70. That's it. Yeah. That was his mistake because especially the time of game. That's also too why you can see he's a sophomore and not a senior or whatever, because if he's a senior, he knows it's like, who cares about this? They're going to get a field goal. We'll give him a field goal. I'm not giving him 6 here. And he just went that because he was too confident going there. And that's how he got burned. And I mean, some of the other stuff he missed some other tackles like in tight, weren't the greatest for him. But there was a lot of stuff where it was like, man, I don't know how he's supposed to get there for like the Jeremiah Love touchdown. Like he's playing backside. Like if
Riley Leonard keeps it. Yeah.
And then he's got to come all the way over. That is, especially too, when you Love, you don't know exactly. Like, I'm sure they knew Love was fast, but it's like, holy crap, he really hit another gear. And that was why he was just like, he wasn't going to get there. Right. Like, but it for even to him to come close is still like something you just wouldn't see. Like he ran like 22 something miles per hour on GPS in a game before. The guy can fly. He's a great athlete. He had 106 tackles last year, 6 picks. Like there's a reason why he's an All-American, but it's like, when you ask one guy to do all that, that is a lot to ask of somebody. And I think that was, I think it's actually unfair. It was unfair.
There was too much dependent on him making tackles in the open field where it's like there's 5 yards of distance between in any direction. Like you're never getting there. Like the 70-yard play by Price, and I put it up because it like, I think someone needs to ask Walters, like, hey, do you guys regret that call? It's 1st and 20 with the clock's running. Notre Dame's clearly running the clock out. They're just going to run the ball. They're in press man as if this is 3rd and 4. Yeah. I couldn't like Jadarian Price. And look, you could get on the defensive end. It's like, don't let him get around you. He retreated 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage to run around him. And then there's nobody left. Because Notre Dame had run the corners off. They were all 20 yards down the field with backs turned. And then you have this safety, this freshman coming up. And it's like, okay, you have Jadarian Price here with a full head of steam. Tackle him. Never happening. And then, of course, he runs free. Like, he was untouched.
Yeah.
It's just a bad job by it's a bad job by their coaches. And they put him in a losing position. And I thought, and then it's like you get all mad afterwards. It's like, dude, you set them up to fail. You don't want to set anyone up to fail. Set yourself up for success with your media company, for your small business, for your social media page, you want to set yourself up for success, go to VSRmediaCompany.com, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at VSRmediaCompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Listen, I think I need to put my hand up about Kennedy Urlacher, right? When he committed, wasn't the highest on him, especially as a safety. I think, look, we do a lot of shows, so I think the consensus was that we don't think he's a safety, but you want him in the locker room because he can kind of do the things that he did in the game. But I have to retract. I have to issue a retraction on the not a safety thing. He absolutely can play safety, and he can be like. I saw him like a lot of the all 22 stuff where it's like it doesn't, you can't see how he's breaking on a ball. You can't see how he's opening up and things like that. I think he can absolutely play the position. And so there's that piece. The instincts, Jamie.
Outstanding.
That's kind of where it is for me. Like a lot of people like to compare like Kyle Hamilton and stuff. And I'm mostly like, please don't. But I will say the thing about Kyle that I noticed kind of as a junior and as a senior in high school was that, like, man, this guy, like, his diagnosis and his instincts for where the ball is going to go and where he needs to go is just kind of really advanced. And that was what I was always impressed by with him. And for Urlacher, like, the diagnosis of where to go, when to undercut a play, when to the angle that he needs to take. They run the screen to his man is blocking. And look, they want to take him out of the play. It's like, oh, you're in man, follow this guy out of the play, and then we'll come back and block you with the lineman. And that's how we're going to hit this big play. And instead, like, he just diagnoses it immediately, sticks his foot in the ground and blows up the whole play. It's the diagnosis that makes it, Jamie. He's just
Plays fast. Yeah.
Really, really good football player. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, like, I was highly questionable of him and being like a guy who would be like play deep safety because there just wasn't film of it. And he just didn't look like a guy that we just didn't see enough of him. Like, his change of direction, how he was an athlete. There just really wasn't, like, the film of him was just like basically him coming downhill and lighting people up. But it was like
doing all
from
those
a single
things
high things and whatever. Right. But it wasn't, and you could see some of that kind of stuff, but it wasn't, it just looked like you're like, well, there's a lot more to playing it than this and all of that. And so people, if you're on IC, you can check this out because I did a thing before of all the new freshmen and retro freshmen who were like new to the depth chart this year. So then it was kind of like a synopsis of the guy. So from the film Don't Lie of when he committed, this is what I wrote about him, and this is what I wrote about his senior season. Then I'll add the Jordan Clark quote that when I asked him about him at camp. But I know this from Film Don't Lie. I know Notre Dame has talked about him in that DJ Brown sub package role that we got a glimpse of this spring. That's basically a dime backer in that scheme, and it's a little bit of what the Irish did with Drew Tranquil in 2015 before he suffered a knee injury. That would have involved him as a player near the line of scrimmage and frequently used as a blitzer. He's a genuinely intriguing player in that role, and perhaps something Notre Dame plans to transition to more frequently going forward. He's also somebody who clearly loves football and is passionate about it. My comp for him would be former Cincinnati linebacker Jarrell White, who was like an undersized, like 200-pound linebacker. He was undersized but highly productive player in the Marcus Freeman's defense. Then after his senior season, I wrote that Urlacher popped a lot more for me athletically, but I didn't get to see him in coverage enough. I don't think he'll be a linebacker in college, but he could end up as a hybrid. And then Jordan Clark. I asked him about Jordan Clark. I asked Jordan Clark about him in camp because he had worked out with him. If you remember, there was like clips of them working out together, with Ryan Clark, Jordan's dad, right? The former Pittsburgh Steeler. And so I was like, well, obviously he's got it on pretty well. He's put in this work. Like, what did you think of him? And he said, and Clark said, I think physically is every tool to be a first round safety. He's insanely explosive. He's a big kid naturally. When he got here, he was already 190 something pounds. I'm not sure what he weighs now, but he has every tool that he needs. And he's a student of the game as well. He wants to learn. He wants to grow as a player. So I think that if not this, in the years to come, he's going to be a really special player here. I mean, it seems like a pretty good assessment by Jordan Clark. Like he does, there is that stuff. And I know it's like, yeah, it's the end of the game, whatever. But anytime you see that stuff, that is special stuff. Like you see a guy coming, downhill, running the alley like that to make a play and get that angle. Like, first of all, you got to have confidence. You got to have speed. You got to have all of this. And obviously, and you mentioned the part about like, he knows when to like, kind of like undercut the thing. The very first play that he made, he's aligned in the box. Well, technically he is wrong on that play because he's supposed
he goes underneath the block. Yeah.
He's supposed to go outside leverage of that tackle there. But it's like what we kind of talked about. I think we talked about it maybe last week about like, hey, you can be wrong, but you better make the play. Yeah. And but he can do that because he has the ability to make that play. And that's what special players do.
That's like a Tavon Coney thing. Like he was very good at this. Yeah.
Great at it. Right. And that's special instincts there because no one's ever say like Tavon Coney was not an elite athlete. No, he was not.
That's why he never played. Like
that's why he never went to the NFL.
Yeah.
And really really, I think if he maybe went to the right situation, he's a guy who could have played in the NFL for a long time. It's just that, you look at him and when you're getting him out in shorts and he's running stuff, he's tight hips. He's not like, he doesn't have great athleticism, whatever. But I mean, the dude was a heck of a football player because he just had physical, all that kind of stuff. But he was elite instincts. And that's when you kind of see with Urlacher. And, I posted the all 22 pick of or gif of him running the alley and making that play. And it's just like, you don't see freshmen make this. I mean, you don't see many safeties period make that, but a freshman, no, you never see it. Except for maybe like a Kyle Hamilton. So you could say like in that sense, when someone's doing that kind of thing, that is a pretty special, category of thing. Woj to God, everybody knows who, if you follow things, good dude who, on Twitter, he was like, this will be valuable against Army and Navy. And I was thinking the same thing. That is the kind of thing, like this dude is going to be a factor against Army and Navy this year. You're going to want him out there because he will make that play on the pitch. He is going to be like, you get out in space, he's going to make that play. He might make like a game-changing type of play where he hits the guy as the pitch is coming or something, comes there, pops, obviously you saw him pop the ball out of there. Like he can do that kind of thing. And man, I think people should be like legitimately excited about like his potential and what he's going to be. Like this freshman class, they got a lot of studs in this freshman class. It's a really, really good freshman class.
Yeah. We're going to talk about a couple of the corners in just 1 second. Rajon asked, does Urlacher have the speed to be a top flight safety? Other things seem to be there. Honestly, I think he's a more athletic Alohi, honestly. I think that's like, he has the same
I think he
build.
does have the speed.
They have the same kind of play style. I think Urlacher is a better athlete than him. I do. I think he is. We still haven't seen him in coverage. Like we haven't seen him like on the tape. Like he's not in the slot working. Like we don't see him against a tight end. You don't see him against like a trips receiver or anything like that. So that is an open question, right? But like, I don't know. I don't remember Alohi being like this great I mean, we saw him get exposed against Clemson, right? Like he had limitations there, but like he's also like starting safety in the NFL, right? Like he
Yeah,
started for the Chargers for a long
super
time.
smart. And like the thing is too is that I mean, I would imagine right now that like, you know, you saw the play where he pulls up Mickey. Like, yeah, if he was playing all the time, you'd probably see a fair amount of
Yeah.
plays where because he's not all, you know, he is not at the level. He's still a freshman, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's why there's very few freshman safeties that do play. And it's also too why you're like when Kyle Hamilton's out there and he's knowing all this stuff and checking all these boxes, you're like, that is so rare. So yeah, I think there's some of that where you're like, you know, in terms of responsibilities within the defense and knowing all of these kind of things too. Like we just talked about that Tiananmen play where he's like coming down. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you got to play that different than you would like, you know, later in the game. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's different situational stuff that, you know, guys got to learn as they go along. But he really, you know, by all accounts, is a guy who really cares and loves football and is like, you know, very, you know, studious in terms of the effort he puts into it. So I don't see any reason why that isn't like intelligent. His football intelligence is going to carry him a long way in that aspect. And one thing that I always do whenever I go to camp in August, Greg, is you know, ever since I've been doing this for ISD, is I always go and I look at the DBs and I just watch them in individual for people that don't know, like indie. So you watch them just because there's so many things you see in indie, just like if you were like at a camp setting for like recruits, where you just see the movement, like in terms of like how they transition out of their breaks, how they open up, what, you know, what are their hips like? Are they tight? Like, are these guys slow at this, whatever? Because at that point, when you see guys on the field, it's hard to notice guys to you know, if they're not throwing the ball down the field, or you see like maybe transition guys are playing slow because they don't know the defense well. So it's not a good assessment to watch
Yeah.
a lot of freshman DBs right away. But physically, you can see a lot right away, just in terms of like, does this guy fit athletically? And I'm gonna be
Mm-hmm.
honest, like I've seen some Notre Dame safeties that on day one, I was like, this guy's never gonna play, and they never did, and they never did. And I don't want to, whatever. I don't want to name names because I don't want to shame guys, but like, that's
I
yeah,
have one specifically in mind.
yeah.
Um,
I
I
mean,
saw
I'm sure people can figure it out, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But like it is true. Like if you can't do that, like and look, some people are thinking through it, right? Like some guys are just like they have to do the movements and it's like they are thinking about, okay, I need to open, I need to with my feet, like you can just tell. And some guys can just do that.
um,
Um
yeah. So, anyways, the whole point was Urlacher, you know, I watched him and that was something right away because that was something I had questions about with him because
mhm,
I didn't see him in person and the type of defense he played, you didn't see him open up on film. You didn't see a lot of these things. You saw him coming downhill a lot, but you didn't see some of these other things. So I was like, well, can he do this? And I watched him and I was like, no, he's a way better athlete than I thought.
yeah,
Like he's fluid. He's fluid.
yeah,
So I don't think that is going to be a problem for him.
yeah. Stephen B asks, question: will Onye move to strong side and Burnham move to Viper due to the injuries? Um I think Notre Dame feels comfortable just if they were to move Burnham, which he's played Viper before.
Yeah.
So if they want to do that, they can. I think they're fine to just have Bryce Young take more snaps. He's an impressive guy. I mean, talking about the freshman, I think he's very impressive. I think they need to keep Onye inside. Um, they just don't have a number of bodies. Like maybe if Rubio was back, but I don't know. I think you keep Onye where he is. I think they have ways to like obviously Abubakar at Viper. You can play Jalen Sneed there if you want. They have Junior Tuliamaku who can play there. They can move over Burnham. I think they're very fine to just promote Bryce Young to the second team, give him some more snaps behind Oben. So I think they're okay. They don't need to move Onye, but what is your take on this?
No, I mean he's not an end, and you could even see like so he played a bit of the end in the NIU game because they were in like 14 personnel or whatever, right? So that was their kind of like, match for that is like, okay, we're going to play bigger here. But you saw they ran a boot and then he couldn't run down the thing. He's not an end, right? Like he's not an end. There's reasons like he's 300 pounds. He's not going to be able to run down some of those things. Like, if he gets like caught in like a, like a read situation, he's not going to be able to run that guy down. Like that's the thing. And that's, you need that kind of thing. I mean, yeah, they could move him in some of like kind of bigger situations if you're playing that kind of thing. But I think you saw too in this game too. First of all, Anye, best game he's ever played. Never shown any of that outside of practice. He's shown some of this stuff in practice, like where you're like, oh, like Anye could do this. Like he actually has this in him, but he had never put it together in a game where all of a sudden you see like, man, he's just explosive, confident, whatever. And I think one of the things too is that like he just is not consistent enough off the ball like he needs to be. But I think when you have a game like this and you see what can happen when you do, like the play that Botello blew out his knee, which was horrible, right? But that play, it's a shame because I would normally highlight a play like that. Not the injury part, but like, I mean, Botello won clean off the edge, and which was great. But like Onye, they were running a TE stunt, so tackle and stunt, and he ran through the inside of the tackle. And when I'm saying like he ran through like a hot knife through butter, and then the back came to pick him up, and he like it was like the juggernaut, like running through a friggin' wall. He just boom, 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 like ran through both those guys and just crushed and got a sack. Like, and that just to me right there was like, and then after that, that's when you saw all the stuff too, where he's like just physically turning guys and like explosive and just, grabbing, like wrist grabbing guys and stuff. And I was like, heck yeah, like that is what you need from him. And that's what he's capable of. Like the guy looks like he looks the most impressive guy on the team. Off the bus, there isn't a more impressive guy. And it's not just like he looks, like he has some of those moments too. And he has some of that explosiveness as an interior rusher. And so if this is like a turning point for him, I mean, it's Purdue, whatever, they dominate, everyone's getting there, is great, right? But if that can be a turning point for him in terms of like just being that guy, he can do that even just some of the time. Like, man, that is massive. That is absolutely massive because he has never shown that before. So, yeah, and I would totally agree with you too. Like Burnham, they don't need to. Boubacar can start a Viper and be fine. And I've seen from what I've seen from Boubacar so far versus the run, he is light years improved as a player against the run. He's not as good as Botello, but like I think he'll be able to handle it fine. Yeah, they can move him over there. Tuya Omaka will play the run fine. He's just not going to give you. He just hasn't shown anything as a pass rusher. But to be fair, like the guy hadn't played really all year before this game, so we'll see. But I think as like a depth guy too, especially if like teams are trying to run it on you, like he's a guy, he'll meet the trap, and he's going to be there. He's just for a smaller guy. He'll bring it. But yeah, you can play, Burnham there if you need him. But I think Burnham and Oben there, and like Bryce Young in this game, I saw some nice things from him, but he is very raw in a lot of areas. And so that's why those reps, man, those are going to help so much. And you could see pieces getting better as the game went on, but he just needs to keep reps and then he'll get more chances. Like I don't imagine in tight games he's going to play a ton of snaps because he's just not there yet in terms of hands and all of these kind of things. It's just consistency there that he needs to work on, and just like block recognition or whatever. But yeah, I mean, once he figures it out, he's going to be insanely good. And I'll say too, Logan Thomas, he looked twitchy, like extremely twitchy. And I wouldn't count him as a guy for loved his motor out there too. He hit Card on the play that Anya tipped the ball and KVA picked it off.
Mm-hmm.
And he got there in a hurry. And I wouldn't consider Thomas, I think, as a guy who's probably going to play regular downs this year at all, but he's not when he's not redshirting, he's playing on special teams and stuff. So
yes, he's gonna, yeah.
But I think there's an obvious reason why he's not redshirting too, because they were like, hey, this guy's gonna help us at some point. Because at the very least, I think you're gonna see, kind of like how Boubacar versus USC last year, where it's like, hey, this team's just chucking the ball late. Like, we need an extra pass rusher. Like, get in there, Logan. Like, because and he's a guy who could just step in and you're like, oh my gosh, Logan Thomas just got a sack, because he's got the traits, man. And I know he still has to fill out a bit, but I don't think people realize when he like first came and he just had the shoulder surgery, he looked like a receiver. And now he looks like more of a dude. And man, he is going to be a real dude once, he gets a couple years in the program.
Yeah. Kind of last thing here. I watched a lot of Leonard Moore. Just in coverage. Listen, he's a good looking player. He's never out of phase. That's the thing. And you can't really, like, you don't know how his ball skills are because they never threw at him. And so it's just kind of hard to gauge that. But man, the kid's always in phase. He's always in proper position. He's never looking stressed. His feet are really good. Like, I think Carson Hobbs, I think he is just a little bit, I want to pick the right word here. He's a little bit uncomfortable out there. It's just like there's a little bit there where he's kind of like unsure. You can tell by his body language. Leonard Moore doesn't have that. He is totally confident. If the receiver stops his feet, he'll stop his feet. When the receiver makes a commitment, then he'll wall off the receiver and get in phase, and he'll be just fine. And it's been 3 games of this.
He played the run well too.
Yeah, he did. Yes, there was one play where he took it in the face from a couple of his teammates, and like D tackles too, because they came to his side. He walled off the wide receiver with his arm, made sure that he cut back, and he knew, I am going to stand here and I have onrushing players, but I cannot bail out of here and let him get to the outside. I have to just stand my ground. And he ended up taking it right in the face, and he gets basically run over by a couple of his teammates in making the tackle. But it's like, that's the job, right? Like, you have to seal that edge, and you're basically setting the edge as an outside corner there. And that's what you need to be able to do as a boundary guy, right? That's why Julian Love played over there, because he was really good at that. Ben Morrison wasn't as good at that as a freshman. He's a lot better now. But he looks fantastic. So can't be any more excited about his development. Like, I think the coaches have been very excited about him for basically the entire time he's been on campus. So I think that's warranted. And so one last thing about Notre Dame's just depth. You've been talking about Notre Dame's their defense and their freshman class. At the end of this, in the second half, Notre Dame's playing a ton of young guys, right? Like Ben Minnick's out there. The 2 safeties are out there. You got a freshman corner. You got two freshman corners in there. You got Armel Mukum in there, right? Like, obviously KVA, he doesn't really count because he's a regular player, and we think he's going to get more snaps as it goes on. He's very, very good. Very good. Purdue, their last 6 drives, other than the long one where they had the bus because Urlacher ran into Mickey, 6 drives, minus 18 yards.
Yeah.
Purdue kept their starters in.
And they kept their starters in.
It was an evisceration is what it was. So
yeah.
It's there's a lot
to see it. Love to see it.
Yeah, usually you see a blowout and it's like, I can kind of turn the tape off. Like, none of this really matters. You don't want to turn the tape off because it just looks like, man, these guys are on it. Like, there are no bad options right now for Notre Dame if you're getting on the football field. And that's good. Stephen B says, KVA looked truly awful in coverage against NIU. I don't think that is correct. If you're referring to the touchdown, that play happened because KVA blew up the wide receiver and he ran the wrong route, and it was
a fluke play.
It was an
and
absolute
also
miracle.
too, like, are you talking about the
So-
one time where they ran a quick play action and they ran like a little drag and then he like made the tackle right when the guy caught it? Like, it was pretty good recognition. Most freshman linebackers are stepping up and that guy's running free for a 40-yard gain. Like, I think he's been pretty good in coverage. Like, shockingly good considering he's a freshman, because that's usually the thing, that even guys that are, as you say, the physical jump, whatever, obviously physically he's there, but like, but that's usually the thing. Cause it's like, are you intelligent enough to know exactly what you're supposed to do? Can you do this thing? Can you reroute a guy? Do you know all this stuff? And like, I mean, he's been impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, Steven, I didn't think they tarred him a lot. I thought he was fine. That's just my, maybe Osbury. I don't know. Osbury had a good second half too. I think honestly, the linebackers, their issues in the NIU game was against the run.
Yeah,
that was their issue. So, all right, we're gonna leave it there. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so whatever it is we are going live. Jamie and I will be back on Thursday to preview Miami of Ohio. Well, maybe we're not supposed to say Miami of Ohio. I saw a tweet about that.
Oh, really? What are we supposed to say?
It's just Miami, Ohio or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't be. I'm going to call it Miami of Ohio. It's fine. And so we're going to talk about that. Look, we're not overlooking MAC opponents from now on.
No.
We're giving this the full send. So we'll talk to you on Thursday. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Keep hitting and hustling.